heart with song. Let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars, and let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, baby, kiss me. Fill my heart with song and let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you. With song, let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cantor Lonnie Freilich, and our hearts turn to the Shapiro family and friends as we remember the life and legacy of L. Dennis Shapiro. We begin our memorial service with the singing of Eli, Eli.
Ach, wohl, It is with sadness that we're gathered here today. My name is Rabbi David Wilfond. I'm a classmate and friend of Zach's for many years, and we're here for two mitzvahs today. One mitzvah is Kavod Lamet, to honor the life of El Dennis Shapiro, Levan David ben Binyamin Vachana, who was born on August 6th, 1933, and he died this past Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. Dennis was the son of Bert and Ann Shapiro and the brother of Jerry Shapiro. We're here for another mitzvah, which is Nechum Avelim, which is to comfort the mourners. And so today we're here to comfort Susan R. Shapiro, who's been married for 55 and a half years. And we're here with the children, with Aliza Shapiro, Rachel Shapiro, Rabbi Zach Shapiro, and his partner, Ron Galperin. And we're also here with grandchildren, Sasha Mandel, the daughter of Aliza, who's 14 years old, with Benjamin Shapiro, son of Rachel, 10 years old, and Maya and Ellie Shapiro Galperin, the twins of Zach and Ron, who are 18 months. Our hearts are with you, the family, as we begin our service of memory. And I want to introduce Mel Barkin and Sandy Levine. Mel will speak first, followed by Sandy. Please, Mel.
I think that's okay.
Just a minute, I'm gonna make sure that Mel and Hope are in. You might have joined twice. Hold on, please. Mel, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, are you sharing your screen? We're looking at a different image.
yeah, I don't see the image that I saw before.
Okay, why don't you stop your video and then speak to us? Try it. There we go. Let's try that for now. You
speak? Can you speak? Do you want me to start speaking?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mel.
Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to this tribute to Dennis Shapiro. Dennis and I met in the fall of 1951 as incoming freshmen to the MIT class of 1955. Let me explain that the red jacket and necktie that I am wearing is not my usual Sunday afternoon attire. It is the symbol of MIT's Cardinal and Gray Society and is typically worn to major college reunion events by older alum. I chose to wear my MIT jacket and tie today in honor of Dennis's lifelong support of MIT. He was proud to wear the jacket to reunion events. Over the years, Dennis had been both vice president and president of our alumni class of 1955. We each attributed much of our success to that education. Thinking back to the early days, I remember an occasional Saturday morning, if we got to Durgan Park, the historic Boston restaurant, before 11 in the morning, Dennis and I could each enjoy an early bird special of soup, a main course, and dessert for 99 cents. Sometimes that meal became breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the entire day. I can also remember occasional undergraduate mixers at Radcliffe College and Simmons College to meet girls. We were never particularly successful at that. After graduation, Dennis and I continued a close relationship, including sharing a basement apartment on Commonwealth Avenue at Hereford Street in Boston. In 1960, a lady friend from New York City got in touch with Dennis, said she was going to a concert at Tanglewood in Lenox, Mass, and was traveling up with a girlfriend. And please arrange a date for her friend. Dennis introduced me to Hope, who became and is now my wife of 57 years. Dennis was best man at our wedding. In the early 1960s, Dennis, who was very experienced and passionately enthusiastic pilot, was instrumental in my learning to fly and in getting a single-engine instrument-rated pilot's license. During that same era, I had the opportunity and fun of doing the construction for his first office in Cambridge with my then small construction company. Dennis, Susan, Hope, and I have remained friends forever. He and Susan attended our important family events. During the decades of our friendship, I benefited, oh, look at that wonderful picture. During the decades of our friendship, I benefited from Dennis's smarts, his integrity, and his caring qualities. He was a wonderful pal. I hope that I remember all that he taught me. I know I shall miss him. We, his friends, have lost an extraordinary man. Thank you.
Address if you were ever shown on the screen. Pull it up. Just ask her.
Andy,
Hello, am I up?
you're up. Thank you.
Hey, I know I'll keep it short because I think
guess.
I was a little bit long.
You weren't there.
I'm all bummed out about Dennis. I really like Dennis, and we got along famously. A few little stories. I met Dennis at YPO. But before that, I really didn't know him before that. I met him at YPO. And the story goes, he was had a small company, and the company had to be sold. He sold the company, didn't have a company then, and he wanted to get back into YPO. And I happened to be membership chairman for a period of time. And Dennis came and we chatted. And I said, Dennis, you got to have a company with, at that point, was 50 people. Is it possible? Do you have anything? He said, well, I'm involved with my brother, who's a car company. I said, Dennis, got a great idea. Are you chairman? Are you involved? Are you an investor? He said, yes. So you become chairman, you come back and submit your reapplication to YPO, and we'll see what happens. When he did that, the membership committee looked at it, and they took Dennis in, and I can tell you right now, it's the best application I've ever received from anybody, and I'm thrilled. Just to prove it, he had plenty of people. Later on, he got involved with what the hell's the company? The Lifeline. tens of thousands of people. So that worked out well. Dennis and I, for some reason, had a close affinity, which I didn't understand really until I read the obituary. He is a Brooklyn native, as I am too. So we're both from Brooklyn, and that says it all. I had Dennis on my advisory board in my company because I thought so much of him. He had great ideas. He was a member of Delta 80 Forum, which goes on almost today. That was almost for 40 years. So I got to know him really well on that one. and we did venture capital investing together. Early on, we did a company called Rascom with a guy named Mark Galvin, I guess. And so we're familiar with that. And the other thing is we had lunch, a lot of lunches. He used to come down, I didn't know he was a foodie. I'm a foodie, he didn't know he was a foodie. L'Espalier used to have these very fancy executive lunches. So Dennis and I used to go there and eat these fancy lunch food. It was great. Some of them weren't so fancy. We met at Longwood Cricket Club for unfancy food. And when he came to the Cape to get his plane serviced, we used to go to Abba Pan. Long story short, I've done a lot of things with Dennis. I truly did love him. I do love him. And I will truly miss Dennis. Hello?
Am I on? Yeah. Oh, you have to
Mom, mute. Put your volume down.
need to mute the volume. Hello, everybody. I'm Ron Galprin. I am the son-in-law and very fortunate to be so. You know, there's the family that we are born into. There's the family that we join. There's the family that we are welcomed into. And there's the families that we create. And I'm so grateful to be part of the Shapiro family. Welcomed as a son by Dennis and Susan, by a brother, as a brother, I should say, by Rachel and by Aliza. And we are so blessed, Zach and I, my dear husband, with our children, Maya and Eli. Dennis lived life to the fullest. He did it with zest, with adventure, with fearlessness, with responsibility to make a difference. He lived so honorably. He was steadfast. He was focused. He had a thirst for knowledge, a commitment to family and to respect, and so much more. These are all qualities the world could use a lot more of, and all qualities that we can model, learning from him and from the life that he led. I want to share with you from the 23rd Psalm, and it's the most famous of all of the Psalms. It's about finding comfort in a time of mourning, about protection as we travel the path of life, about being strengthened, about being sustained, about being uplifted, about being restored, and about approaching life and death with strength and not with fear. Adonai ro'i lo echesar bino desheyar bitzeini alemei menuchot yenahaleini nafshi shobet yanecheini במגלי צדק למען שמו גם כי אלך בגיצה למוות לא ירא רע כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ירחמוני. תערוך לפניי שולחן נגד צורריי, נשמת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב החסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Words from Jerusalem, words of comfort. Esai enai el harim me'ayin yavo ezri. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. I want to now introduce Ron Feinstein, to be followed by Nat Sims, to share words of memory.
Thank you, Rabbi. And we'll wait for the camera.
You're all set, Ron.
Okay.
We can see you.
You can see me okay? Good. Thank you, Rabbi. And thank you to the Shapiro family for the opportunity to share my remarks. As Rabbi said, my name is Ron Feinstein, and I met Dennis 40 years ago. And we were immediately friends as a result of our mutual involvements in this organization you heard about, Young Presidents Organization. What started out as a friendship, which included Susan and my wife, Deborah, eventually grew into a business relationship. And after we sold Lifeline Systems to a Dutch conglomerate, Royal Philips, in 2006, then transitioned once again to a close friendship. Some people who knew Dennis very well, possibly including Susan, used to tell me I was the only person that could successfully work for Dennis. I suppose they thought he was very challenging to work for. Maybe they thought he was continuously too inquisitive, or perhaps organizational dynamics wasn't his specialty. In reality, I enjoyed every moment that we worked together. I think the reason that was the case is he didn't have a mean or vindictive bone in his body, and he never led with ego. He was truly a good soul and only wanted to be helpful in all those literally thousands of hours we worked together. His honesty, his integrity, and his constant concern for me was unwavering. And what more could one ask for in a friend or a boss or a partner? He was direct in his communications. Some might say too direct. I was never distracted by his bluntness or his repetition, because I knew that his vision and his patience would benefit business, family, and community. He used to say he took great pride in being part of something that was doing good at the same time as it was doing well. I affectionately called him Mr. German. Dennis taught me many things. He taught me how to take the long view when there was a crisis. I remember when we were at Lifeline and we drove into a serious pothole in the road. And at that time, he was the largest individual shareholder of the stock, and it cratered by 90%. He didn't miss a beat. He was calm, confident. He would have had to have been very special to not be stressed and destabilized by that devaluation. Not Dennis. He had faith, patience, and calmness. The only time I ever saw him animated was when he and Susan would debate an issue, and even then, the animation was about 2 on a 10 scale. I won't say anything about his passions, although he had more than most people I had ever met, and none of them were skimmed or superficial. What I do want to say is that he had an insatiable appetite for being entrepreneurial. I never asked him what his IQ was, but his mind had the level of creativity rarely seen of this magnitude. His innovative energy was relentless. One day he walked into my office unannounced, which he often did. I thought it was another creative business opportunity. We left my office and walked to a parking lot so he could show me this brand new Prius hybrid electric car he was so proud of. I think that was over 20 years ago. He was convinced that electric cars were the thing of the future, and I must see what it does. I could never relate to his many passions, maybe because of that insatiable appetite for diversity he had, and I was obsessive about focus. We were a good team. In many ways, he was a futurist. I think that's part of his story. He was ahead of his time. Where our common ground was strong was when we both had incredibly tolerant spouses that supported us. His love of his children, his craving to be a grandfather, and of course, as a Jew, he was a proud member of the tribe. These were the topics we often spent time discussing in our friendship. So I'm forever grateful to his family for sharing him with me. It isn't always the case that you find someone to invest in nurturing a genuine, deep friendship. But I found that in Dennis. And I always not only miss those late midnight emails we constantly exchanged, but I already miss him. Thank you for the opportunity to share these feelings with you. Thank you.
Good afternoon from the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont, where it's very snowy, and thank you. This coming April, there will be published Dennis's recounting of a trip in which he and I flew his aircraft across the US, from which I'll quote lightly edited snippets. The article, called 48 Complete, was written last summer and is in part a valedictory reflection. The travelogue embodies themes and characteristics which Dennis constantly exhibited: setting ambitious goals with risk, but also tactical flexibility, intense curiosity, intellectual prowess, humor, and connecting deeply with others. He was an influencer long before the term was popular, whether in business, in the air, or organizing and chairing a consumer electronic society meeting. He consciously crafted powerful experiences, enticed us into those experiences, and by doing so, induced us to emulate aspects of his excellence which fit our own lives and ambitions. As David Mindell will share in tonight's Zoom Shiva, he pushed us hard. He would say, "What are you going to do that's really big?" Let's listen to Dennis from the article 48 Complete. I believe that setting goals is an important part of one's lifestyle, as it enriches each thing one does and makes it more enjoyable. Flying my Cessna 140 to Florida in 1959 as part of an electronics data collection field program at Eglin Air Force Base was an early goal. By 2012, I had reached the age of compiling bucket lists, and one of the priorities was to have flown to all of the contiguous 48 states. I needed just 9 more states, mostly in the Northwest. so I planned to get it done when I flew to Santa Monica that winter. Word gets around and people call to see if they might come along for the experience. It's always useful to have another pair of eyes, especially if they are in the head of another experienced pilot like Nat Sims. On the route were the Badlands of South Dakota and Mount Rushmore. Circling this national monument brought back memories of when I drove cross country in 1954 to attend ROTC camp. We landed in Gillette, Wyoming, blessed with great weather. Though we had just gotten to official Big Sky territory, it had seemed like it was Big Sky as soon as we were west of Chicago. Traffic was sparse, the earth and sky, our private domain. In Idaho, we followed the Snake River along beautiful rolling countryside. As we passed LeGrand Airport, the margin between the road and an overcast got narrower and then disappeared. We did a 180-degree turn to Tally, Oregon, and remain overnight. Nat and I had just one more state, Washington, to go. We had a pre-celebration dinner in LeGrand. The next morning, it was clear, and we departed for Tri-Cities. But it had ground fog, and we needed an alternate. I chose Walla Walla for the simple reason that I wanted to see the town that Al Jolson famously said was so nice they named it twice. After flying down the mighty Columbia River at low altitude, we turned south to the east of Mount Hood, up the Deschutes River Canyon, then overflying Lake Tahoe and Yosemite and refueling at Delano, California. It was a short flight from there into Santa Monica, but after Delano, no longer Big Sky. Traffic, rules, air traffic control, etc. But it all got done. One less goal in the bucket and a salute to almost 60 years of flying. People ask, how about the other two states? But for now, it's 48 complete. Well, hello, Dennis. This week you achieved 87 complete. And as RAF pilot John McGee wrote in 1941, you have again slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter silvered wings. Sunward you've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things. Thank you.
My gosh, thank you so much. Hold on one second. Mom, if you mute. There we go. Thank you so much to all of these eloquent speakers. Thank you to my dear friend Gingy and Cantorlani, and to my cousin Zoe, who is our wonderful Zoom master. I would like to share words as a letter to my dear children. Dear, I got it right. Dear Maya and Eli, I want to tell you a little bit about your grandpa, about Pop Pop. You will never know how excited he was when your Abba and I told him that you were coming into the world. It was a dream he never thought he would see. But your Pop loved Ron, Abba, so much, and who can blame him? And he never stopped asking us when we would have children of our own. Oh, what an incredible man he was. Filled with curiosity, driven by vision, and grounded with integrity. Nothing held him back. I love to watch Pop sail. He found so much joy in harnessing opportunity, finding that exact moment to capture the wind and glide over the water. He loved feeling the rudder against the current. Perhaps this was a metaphor for so much of his life. Knowing that without our mindset, the current would sweep us out to sea. But Pop would push back often push a lot, he would catch the wind. I remember when I was your cousin Sasha's age, or perhaps a little younger, like cousin Benjamin. I was having trouble with my math homework. I went into Pop-Pop's home office, which was filled with gadgets, ham radio equipment and buttons, lots of shiny, exciting buttons. These were the kinds of buttons that if you pushed them, either the police would come by or you get a call from Lifeline Central asking if everything was okay. Pop-Pop didn't want me touching any buttons. So I would ask Pop-Pop for help with math, and he would talk through the problem until I understood the basic concept. He would then handwrite 10 more problems to make sure I had them down, just to make sure that I knew them. By the time I was finished with his assignment, I was no longer awake enough to do my other homework. I think I got C's in history, English, and Latin, but I got A's in math. That was Pop-Pop. Pop-Pop also knew that Hebrew didn't come easily to me, especially when I was studying for my bar mitzvah. He would stand next to me in shul and watch as I struggled to follow the prayers. He would say, find a word you recognize and go from there. And then I found the word Shema, like Shema Yisrael, and it worked. It was like catching the wind, feeling the rudder against the current. Pop-Pop and Susha both had strict rules about how much TV we could watch. Like your Auntie Ray Ray and Doda Eliza and I would always find a way around the rules. At one point, Pop-Pop had a solution. He created a new plug for the TV that would not go into the wall without a special extension. And this extension he kept under lock and key. One evening when Susha and Pop-Pop left us with the babysitter, me, your daddy, figured out a way to plug the TV in by using other electronics around the house. When Pop-Pop and Susha returned, it was obvious we had been watching TV. Pop-Pop didn't know whether to punish me or reward me. He was so proud that his son figured these electronics out. He was proud that I caught the wind and harnessed it. Maya and Eli, your Pop-Pop loved being around family. He just adored Susha. Her talents, her brilliance, they were just the beginning. He once asked me, what is there not to love about your mom? Yes, Pop-Pop was a family man, not only with your incredible Susha, your aunts and your cousins, but also the children and grandchildren of his younger brother, Jerry, of blessed memory. Pop-Pop was so loved by Ruth and Michael and Karen and David, and by their kids, Shayna and Zoe and Shelley and Evan. He deepened his connections to the Shapiro and Nat Binney cousins in a way that really meant something. In a world where people so easily drift apart, Pop-Pop fought the current, caught the wind, and pulled us together. One of the most important lessons your Pop-Pop taught me was to find out what I am good at and chase after it. When I first went to Jewish summer camp, I was so inspired by the music that I came home and picked up your Pop-Pop's old guitar and taught myself how to play. Pop-Pop loved music so much, piano, saxophone, clarinet, accordion, as well as guitar. So he really encouraged me to pursue this interest. He always said that if you pursue something that you love, other people will find deep respect for that. A couple of years later, I decided it was time to buy my own guitar. I set my eyes on a Martin D28, which in the mid-1980s was about $1,000, a lot of money at the time. So I spent that summer in high school working in a movie theater, scooping popcorn and saving my earnings. Finally, by the end of the summer, I had just enough to purchase the guitar. Pop-Pop was so proud of me. he surprised me by picking up half the cost. We ordered the guitar together, and that guitar sang so beautifully. One of the first songs I wrote was a song of loss. It was called Prevailing Winds. It's about how our life journey can change as the winds blow. Dear Maya and Eli, there will be so much in your lives that are beyond your control, but keep Pop Pop's vision in your hearts. Yes, there may be prevailing winds that make us feel lost, but when you feel the wind on your cheeks, you will know that Pop Pop is blowing you a kiss. Capture it, harness it, and know how much joy he had when you came into the world. Dear friends, I want to sing with you, sing for you, that very first song I wrote. This is not the same Martin guitar, it's a different one. But I always loved the look on Pop Pop's face when I would sing this. Prevailing winds took you away from me. I'm lost like a ship in a stormy sea. An island never thrives alone. I need someone to take me home. I need someone to take me home. My head, it's unclear. My heart, it is lost. My future is rewritten once again. I must not dwell on my footpath. I must keep pushing on. But you took a piece of my life. Prevailing winds took you away from me. I'm lost like a ship in a stormy sea. An island never thrives alone. I need someone to take me home. I need someone to take me home. When we meet again, we'll both be quite different. Prevailing winds do this without doubt. But in the midst of our changes, we'll see each other's hearts. 'Cause you took a piece of my life. Prevailing winds took you away from me. I'm lost like a ship in a stormy sea. An island never thrives alone. I need someone to take me home. I need someone to take me home. Can you hear me, Mike? Thank you. Once again, everyone, thank you so much for being here. It means the world to all of us. So you all know, before I introduce Rachel, Mom and Rachel and Benjamin and Ron and I are all in the same place, but we're distanced, but we're together. So Rachel, who I can see within line of eyesight, hi Rachel, I'm gonna pass it over to her.
Hi, everyone. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Shapiro. I'm Dennis's second daughter, middle child, the mother of his grandson, Benjamin. And I have prepared some words. I'm going to try to keep a good angle while I read them. When I thought about what to talk about today, the first story that popped into my head was when my dad made me work at his company, Lifeline Systems, the summer of my 16th birthday, which was horrible, teaching me the life lesson that I should always get my own jobs and be in a position to make my own decisions. I was noodling on this story when I was at my parents' apartment the day after my father died, and my mother and I were starting to go through my dad's things. Digging into his closet, I found his satchel, or what he fondly referred to as his pizza pie. I never really understood this name. I think something to do with you could put anything in it. My dad was never without this bag. He has had many over the years, and they were never fancy. For a while, he even used an old Le Sport Sac bag I got for my bat mitzvah. The one I pulled out of the closet was a small Amazon Basics branded soft computer / briefcase bag. I decided to talk about the contents of this bag because the items I found painted a picture of his passions and his quirks, and many of the reasons why we love him so much. I opened a side pocket first, and there, smushed at the bottom, were 5 full-size candy bars, 3 Milky Ways, and 2 Three Musketeers. My father loved candy, specifically chocolate and licorice. As kids, we would sneak into his home office and go into his left bottom desk drawer, and there, behind the files, were bags of bulk chocolate and licorice. And when they moved to LA and Dad set up his home office here, I would still regularly sneak into his office, and there in the bottom file drawer was always a bag of chocolate. I think Benjamin knew how to find it too. So no surprise he had some in his satchel. There were special pockets for business cards, and these were all full. Keep in mind, this is a satchel he used as an 87-year-old who had been battling cancer for 3 years. My dad had 4 different business cards he carried around in the satchel. He had his IEEE Life Fellow cards. IEEE is the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. And according to this card, my dad was the Industry Advisor Board Chair for the Boston chapter of the Consumer Electronics Society. The card had a EEE email address for him and his mobile number. He also had his ARZAC Corporation cards. ARZAC was started following his retirement from Lifeline, and the ARZAC stood for Allison, Rachel, and Zachary. He used it to invest in startup high technology ventures. There was an ARZAC Corporation email address for him and his mobile number. I believe he passed a lot of these out in Las Vegas when he went to the Consumer Electronics Show every year up until last year. He had his ARZAC Foundation cards. In small print was written, Humanity, Equality, Technology. He started this foundation just prior to the sale of Lifeline and used it to support the many philanthropies that he cared about. These had his ARZAC Foundation email address and mobile number. Lastly, I found his personal cards with his name and then the artwork he has been working on. Yes, Dennis was also an artist, made from images from his presidential document collection, printed across the top. My dad was always ready to meet someone new and network, as long as he thought that person was interesting and had something to contribute. In another small pocket, Dad had his Costco membership card. My dad would take me to Costco probably 4 to 5 times a year. We both loved Costco. My dad and I are both stockpilers. Both of our households had plenty of toilet paper and paper towel when the pandemic came to the United States last year. My dad always had a short shopping list, maybe 6 items, and then he would wait ever so patiently for me to go up and down every single aisle and pile my cart high. When I had my Prius, he would revel in the fact that I could get everything in. He just thought the Prius was the best car. He had one first. He was an early adapter and actually convinced me to get rid of my Mercedes and buy a Prius. The next pocket held 8 C's Candy $25 gift cards, which he probably bought in bulk at Costco along with the candy bars. I split these with my brother. We both love chocolate too. In the main pocket, I found 3 more smushed full-size candy bars. I also found a lot of medical documents, reports on his scans, his chemo, his blood transfusions, a roadmap of his summer to fall treatments. My mom did not want to keep any of these. His Huntington Museum reader lanyard was here, which allowed him special access to the Huntington Library. Pre-pandemic, he would love to drive out to the Huntington in Pasadena to visit the library and learn about history, and then stop in San Gabriel on his way home for dim sum. There were other things in there. Of course, his iPad lived in there when he was on the go, lots of USB drives, punch cards for the car wash to get a free wash after 20. In the last pocket, I found the Hanukkah gift I gave him on December 10th. It was one of those no-touch antimicrobial keys. I gave them to everyone in my family that allows you to open that allows you to open doors and press keypads without touching anything yourself. The key had not been removed from its packaging. The first night of Hanukkah was the last time my dad was at my house, and one of the last times he ever left his apartment. On Sunday the 20th, he drove himself to and from the park to meet Zach and Ron, who were there with the twins. And on Monday the 21st was his last doctor's appointment, where it was decided to end his chemo treatment. And we were told he had 1 to 2 months to live. I remember him leaving my house early that first night of Hanukkah because he wasn't feeling well. That was unusual. He had never left a family get-together early before. In his 3 years fighting this cancer, he had been so strong and resilient and never missed a family gathering. He dropped the key I gave him into his satchel on the way out the door. We were all worried about him driving home. He called me when he got home to let me know he arrived safely, and I still have his voicemail from that message. There is a lot, of course, that wasn't in the satchel, intangible things, like how my dad was great with the babies and readily volunteered to give bottles to his grandchildren, or how he loved to pull out old electronics to tinker with Benjamin, or how he was very romantic with my mother and often wrote her poems. I will miss my dad so much, all his smarts, all his quirks, all of his specialness, and most of all of his unconditional love. My mother, Susan, is going to speak next.
First of all, I just want to thank everyone for all of your love. Thank everyone for all of your love and support. I did not intend to speak initially, but so many of you wrote, each describing a different man, so I decided to share with you the man that I knew. We met in January of 1965 and married 8 months later. Dennis was a struggling entrepreneur, the founder of Aerospace Research, which primarily did work for the Department of Defense. I went directly from being a student to being the wife of a CEO. During our courtship, Dennis brought me to his family and proudly showed me 8 blips dancing across an electronic device. These blips represented Loran C, and as I learned only recently, they were used by NASA in the space programs in the 1960s. Dennis was passionate about many, many things, and once he committed to an interest, he never abandoned it. This included our marriage. As many of you who have spent time with us know, we did not always agree, and we did not hesitate to air our disagreements in public. But these disagreements did not matter, and in a way I felt free to argue with him because at the core I trusted Dennis 100%. I knew that the man I married had 100% honesty, 100% integrity, and was 100% committed to me and to our family. This was never more apparent than at a time, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 years ago when we had a profound challenge in our marriage. I was ready to give up on it, but Dennis was not, and he persisted as he persists in everything that he undertook until we worked through our problem. But back to when we first met. Among his many loves was music. He played the clarinet and the saxophone and the accordion, and was a bachelor who owned a piano, which I played. So I was able to accompany him as he played Mozart's clarinet quintet. He loved to travel, with or without his airplane. And by the way, when we first married, I thought if he could afford a wife or a plane, I knew that which order I came in. It was second. Sometimes I thought that he decided to sell advisor burglar alarms internationally just for the opportunity it gave him to travel around the world. We never got to the Galapagos because for some reason he thought we should wait until we were old. And of course, he never considered himself old. But he planted his feet in all 7 continents and landed his own plane in the 48 contiguous United States. When an Arctic cruise was canceled because the ship ran aground, he booked regional airlines and flew from one northern Canadian town to the next, even though his luggage got misplaced and he did not have warm clothes. When we did not like the oceanside resort we had booked in Belize, he flew the Baron to the interior and managed to find the small airstrip carved out of the jungle, which was just 10 miles shy of the border of Ecuador where there was a civil war going on. That was a scary flight. We both grew up watching sailboats, Dennis on Long Island Sound and me, Lake Michigan, but we never had the opportunity to sail. That changed in 1969 when we bought our first boat, a 22-foot sloop on impulse, and started sailing out of Marblehead Harbor. That boat gave way to a 30-foot sloop, which became our family's summer home as we sailed it to various ports in Buzzards Bay and out through Woods Hole to Martha's Vineyard. We tried, but we never did get to Nantucket in that boat. But eventually we did get to Nantucket, where we started racing in the Saturday One Design races. First in Quicksilver, our 18-foot catboat, and in the last couple of years in Eclipse, our 12.5-foot Haven. Dennis was a team player. He felt that as part of the group who participated in the Saturday races, we should never miss a race, never mind the weather, visiting house guests, the flu, or what. It did not matter that we were looking at the stern of Steve Caulfield's boat. We were part of this group and we had to hold up our end of things. Yes, being a team player was important to Dennis, but just as important was his own vision, which often was contrary to the visions of those with whom he was working. In later years, philanthropy became more important to Dennis, and he was a board member of several nonprofits. I've been told by other board members that he was never shy about voicing his opinion, and often these opinions were contrary to others, but visionary. He was an imaginative gift giver. I was not. When I was taking silversmithing lessons, he presented me with a stamp so that I could mark my products Shapiro Sterling. But I did manage to give him one meaningful gift. Some years ago, he mentioned that he had seen a letter signed by Andrew Jackson at a local antiquarian bookstore in Boston. I bought him that letter, and that was the start of his passion for collecting historical manuscripts, primarily letters written by US presidents. As he collected, he wanted to learn the context of each letter. So a corollary to collecting became an interest in history, and a corollary to that interest became an interest in organizations, including the Library of Congress, Massachusetts Historical Society, Nantucket Historical Association, the Boston Athenaeum, and most recently, the Huntington Library, the home of the Shapiro collection. Yes, collecting was his penultimate passion, but his first and ultimate passion was his family. While we did not have a formal marriage contract, we did have an unwritten stipulation. Dennis thought that there was no point in getting married unless one had children. So the deal was that we would work on starting a family just as soon as I had taken the bar exam, some 4 months after our marriage. By 4.5 years after the bar exam, we had become a family of 5. Our children, by contrast, delayed starting their own families. But finally, Sasha and then Benjamin were born. And then just almost 18 months ago, Maya and Eli joined our family, bringing all of us, but particularly Dennis, who by then had been diagnosed, incredible joy. While I have mentioned a few of Dennis's passions, I've only scraped the surface. Some he did by himself, such as ham radio, and some we shared with equal enthusiasm, such as skiing, and some he joined me in because I was interested, such as golf, opera, and of course, ice dancing. People have written to me and described Dennis as gentle, as visionary, as a fighter, as modest, and so on and on. He was all of these and more. I shall miss him.
The Be'ado is the last portion of the Adon Olam prayer. And it's a really beautiful song and portion of the Adon Olam. It reminds us that our souls are entrusted to God, our spirits are safe with God. Adonai live lo ira, ve'im ruchi keviati. Adonai live lo ira. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand. Be'adov kidruchi, be'eti shan ve'ahira, ve'im ruchi geviati. Adonai live lo ira, ve'im ruchi geviati. Adonai live lo ira.
Thank you so much, Cantor Lonnie. 1 second, Mom, if you can turn your volume down. Whenever I would do a eulogy for a radio hymn, I would email my father and say, Dad, I know that when a ham dies, there's a Morse code. There's a Morse code sign off that's done. And I wanted him to remind me, because he taught me Morse code as a boy. And he said it was the letters SK, dit, 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 da, dit, da, dit, 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 da, dit, da. And I have to say that in preparation for today, one of those instincts I had was that I needed to email my father to find out what that was again. And I couldn't do that. It was incredible sadness. As we all go into our own silent prayer, we offer him that send-off, da-da-da-da-da-da. And let's take our own moment to remember Dad in our own way.
It must have been cold there in my shadow to never have sunlight on your face. You were content to let me shine, that's your way. You always walked a step behind. So I was the one with all the glory, while you were the one with all the strength. A beautiful face without a name for so long. A beautiful smile to hide the pain. beneath my wings. Oh, the wind beneath my wings. You are the wind beneath my wings. Fly, fly, fly away. You let me fly so high. Oh, you, the wind beneath my wings. Oh, the wind beneath my wings. Fly, fly so high against the sky, so high I almost touch the sky. Thank you, thank God for you, the wind beneath my wings.
The pictures we've just seen show us in such a moving way that for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak words of love, words of memory, a time for words of El Malay Rachamim.
El Malay Rachamim is perhaps the most traditional of prayers that we say in a house of mourning. And for those who are able to rise, I invite you to do so. It's actually a prayer that music to the prayer that my father and my mother, both of blessed memory now, taught me. El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bameromim, Ametzei Menucha, Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah, Im Kedosh Umekorim Kezohar HaRakia, Mazirim et nishmat Lavan David ben Yamin vechana shalach leolamo bal harachamim yastirehu beseter kenafav leolamim bitzror achayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato yanuach bishalom al mishkavo v'nomar
compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Dennis Shapiro, who has entered eternity. Levan David Ben Binyamin Vachana. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen.